The next generation version of Fallout 4 is going to be arriving this year for the next generation consoles and also as an update for those on PC. And in this video we'll be going over the best things arriving with this Fallout 4 next generation version and some other things that could be arriving that would also be really good additions or changes to the game. So to put it simply, this is the best things about the next generation version of Fallout 4. Let's waste no more time and let's get straight into the video. Fallout 4 sold around 13.5 million copies, so there's a lot of people out there who will definitely want a free next generation update for Fallout 4, and that right there is where we get the first best thing about this next generation Fallout 4 update, and that is that it is completely free. There'll be no paid entry into this next generation updates for Fallout 4. This will be available for everyone that has a next generation console or PC and will be completely free, so there's no payment required. That is definitely something good. We've seen with other games such as the Outer Worlds recently that have actually had a paid update for next generation consoles. We see that actually a decent amount, so it's nice that this will be completely free and there won't be any sort of fee to get this upgrade. Completely free, and yeah, that is really good. The next best thing is that this will include performance mode features for high frame rates. So at the moment on PlayStation 5, the game actually still runs at 30 frames per second, which for a game that is for some people primarily in first person really isn't great, and it should definitely be above 30 frames since, yeah, in 2023 to be playing a game in first person at 30 frames per second really isn't a great experience, especially if you're on a next generation console with the power of a PlayStation 5. So yeah, that really needs to be improved, and it will be improved with this next generation version. Now the reason I didn't mention Xbox there is because on Xbox Series X and S there is an FPS boost feature which will actually increase the FPS to 60, but unfortunately it does downscale the resolution to 1080p no matter what. So being able to play at 60 frames per second, that's what will hopefully be 1440p or maybe even 4K, will be really nice. And they also said high frame rate, so that's a possibility there that there will even be 120 frames per second modes, or maybe a sort of dynamic frame rates where it will be able to go to some sort of 90 using the variable refresh rate or something like that. We don't really know, but having high frame rates of at least 60 to possibly even 120 frames per second, maybe it'll be 60 frames per second at 4K, 120 at 1080p, we don't know. Of course for the Series S it'll be slightly different since it's not as powerful, but for the Series X and PlayStation 5 we could be seeing some really high frame rates, which is of course going to be one of the best things about this update. And for some people the most important and the only important part about this update is getting that high frame rate, particularly for those on PlayStation 5. Now on most next generation games we usually get the option between a performance mode and a quality mode or fidelity mode depending on what they name it, and sometimes there's also a balance mode. But first of all, the performance mode will be at the lower resolution usually. Sometimes it is at a higher resolution, which I'll get into, but generally speaking the performance mode is obviously going to have the higher frame rates. So this does mean that the game will actually be playing at a higher frame rate, so for example 60 frames per second, and then the resolution will maybe be 1080p, or sometimes it will actually be higher, because then on the fidelity or the graphics mode you'll be getting ray tracing at maybe 30 frames per second, but of course it will actually be lowering the resolution on the fidelity mode to be able to use ray tracing, if that makes sense. But generally speaking the idea is performance mode has the higher frame rates and then the graphics mode has the better graphics but the lower frame rates, and sometimes there's a balance mode where it basically uncaps the frame rates, when some areas will actually be able to almost hit 60 frames per second, but generally you'll be looking at about 40 frames per second, trying to get the best of both worlds if you use a balance mode, but not all games will have that. So it's likely that with Fallout 4 we'll be getting, maybe there'll be no modes and it'll just be uncapping the frame rate to 60, or maybe there'll be a mode for 60 frames per second and 120, or maybe just for 30 and 60. We'll just have to wait and see, but either way that is definitely one of the best things about this next gen version. The next best thing is that there will be improved resolutions. At the moment the game basically runs at 1080p since it's not a next generation version of the game. It was of course designed for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, so unless you're on PC it will be running at 1080p most of the time unless it's slightly upscaled. But generally speaking, yeah, it's not a native 4K resolution, and with the next generation version we'll be getting a 4K resolution upgrade with also quality features improvements for the graphics. So that means the graphics will have some slight improvements. That usually means that the textures will improve in resolution as well, and generally speaking the colors and saturation will all look a bit nicer too. So some general light improvements to the graphics, and also we'll be getting the 4K resolution, which will definitely improve the overall gameplay and experience. Being able to play at 4K at 60 frames per second really would be amazing. So yeah, having that 4K resolution support for the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 would be amazing. Maybe for the Series S there'll be 1440p support, but what we can really expect there is 1080p. And now in terms of those graphical upgrades, over on PC we might not see quite as much, since the game already of course has an uncapped frame rate and it already has 4K resolutions and everything like that. So having improved graphics there won't be as necessary, especially with all the mods that you have access to, then yeah, there really won't be many needs for graphical upgrades there, if any, but of course I still think there will be a few. Typically, with a next generation upgrade, we get a few new graphical features, such as maybe ray tracing, that we've never seen before in the game, even over on the PC side of things. So possibly, yeah, over on PC as well, we'll get some improvements to the overall graphics, not just an improvement to the resolution on the consoles. Hopefully, like I mentioned, improvements to the texture resolution and everything like that, adding a few filters to the game just to make the lighting look better will be a really cool addition. And also maybe getting ray tracing as well would be really, really nice, but I wouldn't expect that. But of course, with the next generation version, that's always going to be a possibility and something that you could possibly expect with Fallout 4. So ray tracing really would hit the nail on the head in terms of the graphical capabilities of the game. So moving on from that, the next best thing is that there will be bug fixes. There's going to be loads and loads of bug fixes for the game, and hopefully this will be fixing the issues with the crashes. In areas such as Boston, the game crashes all the time, particularly on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox consoles. Not so much on PC, but on the Xboxes and the PlayStation 5, it's a serious issue. In some places, you literally can't even enter them. They are basically unplayable, since you can never go in them, since if you go in them, you're just going to crash. Of course, it doesn't happen for absolutely everyone, but most players it's going to happen, and you'll just be crashing as soon as you enter certain areas, and that needs to be fixed. And I am sure that without a doubt that will be fixed with this next gen update. It needs to be fixed since launch day basically, and for some reason Bethesda never did it. So hopefully, finally, with this next generation update, all these 7-8 years later, we'll finally be getting those areas fixed, and you'll be able to freely explore those areas without any stuttering, no crashes or anything like that. Hopefully that will all work well with some bug fixes. And hopefully there'll be bug fixes for some other, mainly UI issues and everything like that. For example, entering certain menus can sometimes not work well, so just being able to, smoothen out the game would be really, really nice. Now, I have no doubt that with this next generation update, there will be more bugs that arrive, so hopefully there'll be a couple patches later down the line as well, just to make sure the next generation version is also running well, along with all of the previous bugs being fixed. So yeah, hopefully a couple patch updates are along the way, along with the bug fixes with this next generation update as well. So the final best thing is that there is going to be bonus creation club content. This means that there will be basically some new content within the game. Now, it's possible that this content will be some sort of modded content that's already been created by other users that Bethesda really, really like the look of, and they want to implement it officially into the game. It's possible that that'll be how this works. We really don't know yet, but there is going to be some more content for players to get stuck into. So yeah, some bonus creation club content is on the way, and that's definitely one of the best things about this update, is that we are getting some more content. Even if it is a single player game and it's about 8 years old, we're still getting some more content, which is really, really nice, and hopefully that will even arrive on the older consoles. Of course, that is really pushing it, but it's possible that they will feature that on the older consoles in games such as The Witcher 3 with that next generation update. The new content and quests also came to the older consoles, so something like that would be really, really nice to see, but of course we can't expect that. But either way, for the next generation consoles and PC, we'll definitely be getting some bonus creation club content, which yeah, that is definitely something nice. And that does just about wrap up things here. Those are the best things arriving with this Fallout 4 next generation update, which will hopefully be arriving in 2023, unless of course it does have to be delayed. And that does just about wrap up things here. Now, I have actually done a video where I go over everything we know so far about this next generation update, and if you're interested in watching that, the link to that video is on the screen now, and you can go ahead and join me over there.